So my wife admitted she cheated on me while drunk. I pretty much turned into a robot, packed her stuff, and kicked her out. She tried everything to win me back, even suggesting a threesome, but I opted for divorce instead. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I've been married to Kate, a 34-year-old woman, for 4 years. We've been together for 9 years, and our relationship has always been great, full of love, support, and solid communication. We barely ever fight, and our sex life has just gotten better over the years. We've talked about cheating before, and I made it super clear that it would be a deal breaker for me. Anyway, Kate went to visit her family last weekend, which is pretty normal. We had a minor tiff about the house being messy before she left on Friday night, so we didn't talk much on Saturday. She was out with friends at a bar, but I trusted her completely, so I didn't think twice about it. I texted her before bed, hoping she had a great night. The next morning, I saw a missed call from her at 4 a.m., so I immediately tried to call her back but got no answer. After a few more tries, she finally messaged me saying she was fine and heading back home soon. When she got home that afternoon, she looked like a mess, clearly had been crying, no makeup, which is unusual for her, and just seemed like a shell of herself. I knew something was up. She wouldn't let me hug her and barely spoke. I made her some tea and gently pushed her to tell me what was wrong. After about 10 minutes of uncontrollable sobbing, she blurted out that she slept with someone after the bar. At that moment, something in my brain just broke. I can't explain it any other way. I got up, jumped in my car, and drove off to a nearby park to clear my head for about an hour. Kate kept calling me, but I turned off my phone. When I got back, I packed some of her clothes and shoes into suitcases and left them by the front door. She was curled up on the living room floor, sobbing. I called her best friend to pick her up and told Kate I was leaving for an hour. When I came back, she was gone, along with her stuff. The next day, with a clearer head, I finally answered one of Kate's many calls. I told her to send me an email with as many details as possible about that night, and that if she left anything out, we'd have no chance of reconciliation. She sent the email, but I haven't opened it yet. I've been avoiding everyone and just focusing on work, exercise, and sleep. One of her friends even showed up at my house demanding an explanation, but I told her to talk to Kate and slammed the door in her face. I've also been talking to divorce lawyers, moved money into separate accounts, and blocked Kate and her friends on everything. I feel like I've been on autopilot. Numb, not angry or upset, just numb. Kate left a note asking to meet up, and I'm conflicted. Should I? Edit. When I came home the first time, Kate confirmed it was consensual. She was drunk but knew what she was doing. Update. I decided to meet with Kate without reading her email. When she came over, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me, mumbling apologies, but I stopped her. We sat down to talk, and I recorded the conversation. She explained that she was at the bar with two friends I know and like, drank a bit but wasn't really drunk. Sarah's younger brother Max, who had a longtime crush on Kate, picked them up. After dropping everyone else off, it was just Kate and Max. He suggested she crash at his place when she couldn't find an Uber. On his bed, he kissed her, and she kissed back, and they ended up having sex. She called me right after because she felt guilty. After she finished, I told her that her story didn't matter anymore because I was done. I told her we're going to continue with the divorce preparations, but stay separated with no contact for a month. During this time, we need to stay faithful, get an STD panel, and she has to tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she follows through, we might talk again. She agreed, but didn't expect me to stay faithful. I need to be sure divorce is the right move, though I'm pretty sure it is. Update 2. Over the last week, I've stopped feeling like a robot and have had bursts of anger and betrayal. My friends have been great, keeping me busy. I read Kate's email and wish I hadn't. The details were explicit and brutal. Kate's parents reached out apologizing and asking me to reconsider, but I don't think that's happening. So, if I decided to go through with the divorce, I didn't fully commit right away. Anyway, that night, one of Kate's other friends reached out to share her side of the story. Most of it lined up with what I knew. They had food, went back to someone's house, and Kate planned to stay over, but ended up saying she'd drive home early the next morning. Max was all insistent on taking Kate home. This friend didn't mention anything about Kate trying to get an Uber. It was more like Max invited her in, and she just went along with it. I asked this friend if she ever had any suspicions before. She recalled that about a year ago, she met Kate for coffee, but found Max there too. Kate looked all guilty but brushed it off, saying they just bumped into each other by chance. Max's sister Sarah also called me. She's super pissed at both Max and Kate, and her whole family is basically fed up with Max. She hadn't talked to Kate since finding out what happened and even apologized for her idiot brother. She said she'd warned him to stay away from Kate since high school and doesn't think anything else had happened between them. I haven't heard a peep from Kate, but apparently, she's planning to move into an Airbnb near our place. She's not handling things well, calling in sick at work a lot recently. She's got support from the friend she's staying with, and I asked her parents to check in on her. They visited her this past weekend. Meanwhile, I went out with some friends, got pretty drunk, and chatted up a girl at the bar. I probably could have taken her home but decided against it to keep my self-respect. Reading all the emails and knowing what Kate did just made me lose hope in fixing things, especially since I know she's not being honest about other stuff. So, yeah, I'm moving ahead with the divorce and might not even wait a month before telling Kate that's my final decision. Update 3. I wasn't sure about sharing this update, but a lot of folks seem invested in this saga, so here it goes. Sorry if it's too much info. Kate emailed me last week asking to pick up some work stuff. My lawyer said not to block her access to the house or her belongings, so I grudgingly agreed she could come over Thursday night while I was at the gym. I told her to be out by 7:30, but when I got home at 8, she was still there. She'd left some work items by the stairs and was chopping vegetables for dinner, looking amazing with her hair and makeup done, and wearing one of the dresses I love. The whole place was tidied and cleaned. I calmly asked her to leave immediately. She made her way to the door but then stopped and asked if we could talk. I should have said no, but I eventually agreed. We ended up chatting for about an hour, jumping from topic to topic. I told her I'd record the conversation, and she was okay with it. I started by asking if she had kept her side of the agreement we made last time we talked. She said she'd taken an STI test, all clear, and a pregnancy test, negative. She hadn't been with anyone else and had told a few friends and family what happened, and many were angry and not speaking to her. I had tons of questions running through my mind. She confirmed that going into Max's apartment, the Uber story was BS. He invited her in for a drink, and she knew, at some level, something might happen. She couldn't really explain why she did it other than being selfish and enjoying the attention. She also admitted to texting Max a few times over the years because he showered her with compliments and made her feel good. She was careful not to lead him on and never sent explicit messages or pics. She also told me they had hooked up about 6 months before we got together, but never had sex. She said she was always a bit curious. The coffee shop incident. Max texted her, asking what she was up to, and he showed up when she told him she was there. She swore that was the first time they'd done anything since we were together. Kate said there was nothing missing in our relationship and hated herself for ruining our perfect marriage and causing me so much pain. I told her I didn't believe her story and didn't see any point in continuing the conversation. She calmly asked what she could do to make things right, like sharing her phone location, not going out without me, etc. Clearly, she'd done her research. I said I had no plans to become her prison guard, especially since I'd never get over the betrayal. Then things got really weird. She asked me to turn off the recording because she had something private to discuss. I refused, and she reluctantly went on. She asked if I'd been with anyone else sexually since all this happened, saying she'd be fine with it. I told her no, and she said I must be going crazy since we used to have sex almost daily. She started talking dirty, mentioning all the kinky things I'd wanted to try or had only done a few times. She said she wanted to meet my needs, even if we didn't get back together. She offered threesomes, an open relationship on my side only, and even finding partners for me. I stayed silent until she asked who I wanted a threesome with. For some reason, I mentioned her coworker, who's 5 years younger and a total knockout. This surprised her, but she went with it, asking what I'd do with her. I described a hardcore scenario where Kate would just watch. This caught her off guard, but she played along. Later, I realized I only said all this to hurt her, which I don't feel good about. She was convinced her plan was working and got into my favorite position on the couch, begging me to have sex with her. I'll admit, for a few seconds, my body reacted even though my head wasn't in it. Then everything came into focus, and I remembered the content of her email. I started to laugh, a full-on belly laugh. She looked hurt, moved away, and started crying. I told her it was time to go and that she needed to hurry up and get a lawyer because we're getting divorced. After she left, the post-nut clarity confirmed I dodged a bullet. I have a meeting with my lawyer this week and want to move forward with the divorce ASAP. Final update. It's been a tough few months. I've only seen Kate a handful of times. After a few weeks of no contact, I decided we should talk with clearer heads. So, I went out for lunch with Kate to chat about everything that went down and what making amends might look like. It was a calm and respectful conversation. Kate said she'd do anything to get things back on track, and I believe her, but I didn't make any promises. Then, Kate asked me to attend a therapy session with her therapist, who also deals with married couples. I mulled it over for a few days before saying yes. The session was rough, lots of tears and all, but I didn't get a clear answer on why Kate cheated. The therapist was pretty fair and didn't judge either of us, which was nice. We talked about reconciliation again, but I told Kate I thought it was best to go ahead with the divorce. Last week, I drove up to her parents' place to return some tools I'd borrowed from her dad. We had planned for Kate to be there and for her parents to leave for a bit so we could talk. I had a tough conversation with her parents. They were heartbroken, but still incredibly supportive. When Kate and I spoke, I made it clear that after a lot of thought, I couldn't see us getting back to where we were. The betrayal was too much for me to handle. Even if we could somehow rebuild trust, it could take years, maybe a decade, and that's too big a risk for me. Kate finally accepted it, and we had a calm discussion about dividing our assets, selling the house, etc., and then emailed our lawyers. We parted on good terms. The divorce should be finalized by the end of the year, and we'll be putting the house up for sale soon. Meanwhile, we've agreed to go no contact and not start dating until everything is settled. I've had a few casual hookups, and it feels strange being single again after all this time. I've been hitting the gym, spending time with friends and family, and getting back into my hobbies. I'm feeling optimistic about the future. Even though I'm still devastated by the loss of my marriage, I think it's made me grow as a person. Thanks to everyone who offered advice and support. Hi, I'm Tom. I never thought I'd be sharing my personal struggles online, but here I am. I'm not just venting. I want to show others that even when your world falls apart, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just an average guy working as a software developer. My story isn't just about me, though. It's about my ex-wife, Sarah, and how her actions turned my life upside down. Sarah and I met through mutual friends about 8 years ago. She's a realtor, super passionate about her job. I admired her drive. She made you feel like anything was possible if you worked for it. I remember joking when we first met that I'd trust her to help me buy a house, and probably a lot more too. She asked if I meant it, and I said yes. Our first date was at the movies, and she was so enthusiastic about her favorite films. Conversation flowed so naturally with Sarah that I quickly fell for her. Sarah had a demanding schedule. Real estate is tough with its long, unpredictable hours. But I was supportive, and we made a great team. Me with my steady 9 to 5 and her with her crazy hours. There was one thing that bugged me early on, her closeness with a colleague, Mike. At first, I didn't think much of it. They were coworkers after all. But their meetings became more frequent, and Sarah talked about Mike in a way that felt off to me. I'm not usually a jealous guy, but something about her always taking his calls, even on our date nights, got under my skin. I casually brought it up once like, "You and Mike seem pretty close," trying to sound nonchalant. She laughed it off, saying, "Oh, Tom, it's nothing. We just work well together. You don't need to worry about him." I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. Still, I didn't push it because we were happy, and I didn't want to create problems over what might be nothing. Eventually, Mike transferred to a new department, and Sarah and Mike spent less time together. A few years into our relationship, I proposed, and Sarah said yes. We got married, bought a house, and soon after, had a beautiful baby girl, Lily. Life seemed perfect for a while, but then Mike started popping up again. Sarah would mention running into him at the office or working with him on deals. I told myself it was nothing, but my gut was telling me otherwise. About a year ago, Sarah's late nights at the office became more frequent. She'd come home late, claiming she had to stay for closings or client meetings. As the late nights increased, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I started noticing little things, like how she'd suddenly get a text and smile at her phone, or go out of her way to mention how busy Mike was. Sarah also became less affectionate, and something felt very wrong. One night, after another late return, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through her phone while she was in the shower. I found flirty texts between her and Mike, way too intimate for just coworkers. The final straw was when I checked her location history and saw she'd been going to Mike's address. She'd been lying to me for months. I was furious and didn't know how to confront Sarah without losing it, so I hatched a plan. I pretended to be a potential buyer and set up a showing with Sarah and Mike. On the day, I arrived early and watched as they pulled up together, laughing. Then, they kissed. Sarah wasn't even wearing her wedding ring. I approached them, and the look on Sarah's face was priceless. They knew exactly why I was there. I told Sarah that if she wanted to throw away everything we had, she could have Mike. That night, I packed up her things and told her to leave. I kept Lily. There was no way I was letting Sarah take her after what she'd done. The divorce was brutal. Sarah tried to play the victim, but I had all the evidence I needed. In the end, I got full custody of Lily, and Sarah was left to face the consequences of her actions. As for Mike, karma caught up with him too. He was married and cheating on his wife with Sarah. When Mike's wife found out, she filed for divorce, and Mike lost his family and reputation. It's been tough, but I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. Lily is my world, and I'm doing everything I can to give her the best life possible. Being a single dad isn't easy, but I have a great support system, and we're making it work. That's my story. It's still painful to think about, but I'm finally moving forward. Thanks for reading.